everyone, welcome back. Today I want to do math lesson planning. I'm not talking about the final polish, these are the plans I'm going to submit to my principal, but I'm talking more about creating rough outlines to get a jump start on next school year, because our school district uses the Everyday Math series, and last year I pretty much taught this book the way the book told me to teach the book, because we had just purchased the new updated version. It's Common Core aligned, and it was supposed to be grade level specific, and everything you needed to have and cover it was right here in this one book. You're good to go. Well, I taught this book and my students struggled. They struggled a lot. And a big reason they struggle is because, in my opinion, this math book does not provide enough hands-on opportunities, and it kind of just jumps in because, the math book is assuming that my students learned what they were supposed to learn when they were first graders and second graders and third graders. But as all teachers know, a lot of our students are coming to us with gaps in their education, especially in a school district like mine, which is a very transient district. So a lot of our students, they move around a lot, or they might suddenly be out of school for an entire week, and then they come back, and where have you been? Well, we were moving, or this happened, whatever. So this for me just isn't cutting it. I was very blessed last year to be part of a Math Institute program, which was a cooperative learning environment, and there was like 7 full-day sessions where I was exposed to a lot of new books, a lot of new programs that I'd never even seen or heard of before, and I love them. And as I was learning all these new things last year, I would bring them back to my classroom and try to implement them. But a big part of the problem was that I didn't start those new strategies on day one. So, by the time December, January, February starts rolling around, it's like, wow, this is great. I need to go do this. Well, I was already at a point in the book series where it's like, well, I'm going to have to try it next year because we're already past that. So this year, I feel incredibly more armed to tackle math this year. So I'm going to go through the different books that I'm incorporating from, and how I'm writing some of my rough draft lesson plans, and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. Now, of course, this is coming from a 4th grade perspective, but you would just bring it down for 3rd or 4th or 2nd grade and bring it up for 5 and 6. But I think the big key is, just because they're 5th graders, just because they're 6th graders, heck, just because they're 8th graders, doesn't mean there's still not room for materials and manipulatives and different items to be brought in. Because even if you look at not the Common Core, but the 8 mathematical practices that are part of the Common Core, one of the practices is to use appropriate tools. Well, in my opinion, this book jumped straight to the paper and pencil, and it jumps straight into the higher level thinking. Well, I need to build some of those foundation skills first. I need materials, I need paper money, I need pattern blocks. I need to start there and then work it into this. So that's what I'm going to try to show you guys today, and I'm going to show you how I'm pulling and switching around, and I've been working on this all day today, and I've only got 10 lessons done, but it's going faster now that I kind of have a feel for how I'm putting it together. So let's get started. So one of the first things I did was I created a template that matches my Erin Condren teacher planner. I just went on a Word document and made tables, and then added a little color to the table. But what I can do, if I want to, is I can cut away the excess, and it actually will fit in my Erin Condren planner. I figured this was something useful to make, not just for doing rough planning, but also because there's a possibility that I may need to go back to typing lesson plans next year to submit them to my principal. So this way I can at least type them on here on my laptop, and then print them and cut away all the extra paper, tape them in here, and then I can just email the typed version straight to my principal. So I'm going to put this aside because we're not going to get this dirty today. And what I really needed to do was somehow stay true to the math series while changing the math series, because technically this is the book series that my district has bought, and they want us to use it. They spent a lot of money to buy it, and it's important that it's not just sitting there collecting dust. But even my principal and I think some of the administrators would be willing to say, there is a problem with just using this. We need a little extra help. So what are the tools I'm using to help me? The first one is called Number Talks, helping children build mental math and computation strategies. I love this book, and I wish it wasn't so expensive, because I know it's like $60 on Amazon, and Amazon's the cheapest place to buy it. But what this book does, it's broken into two halves, the K through 2 half and the 3 through 5 half, and of course I'm a 3 through 5, and it starts very basic. And I am going, every math lesson in here starts with the math message. If I go to lesson 1-1, the first thing you have is mental math and fluency and this math message. And the math message usually ties in to the main lesson somehow, some way. I'm ditching that. These two are now gone. But I'm not teaching it. The mental math and fluency is what Number Talks is all about. Number Talks is literally nothing but mental math strategies. And for my group, I'm going to start the first day with page 1. Oh, where was it? Oh, let me find the page. I should have marked it earlier. Actually, I have it written down here. 86. So it starts, there's a progression to it. So the first one is called Making Tens. The following number talks include 2 add-ins that make a quick 10. So I'm going to literally write this problem on the board, 7 plus 3. And all the kids are going to be on the carpet, and I'm not going to have them shout out answers. I'm going to give them a moment to think about it. And then I'm going to call in several children to give me an answer. And as each child gives me an answer, I'm going to say, how did you get that answer? And then if they say, well, I added 3 fingers, I'm literally going to draw the number 7 plus 3 fingers on my butcher paper. If they say I counted up in my head, I would write 7 and then, with like bunny hops. And the rest of they got the answer 10. So you're basically dissecting a simple problem. Then the next problem is 7 plus 5 plus 3. That one gets written on the board, and again, I give them about 30 seconds to figure out the answer, and we follow the same process. How did you add this? And now a lot of the children are going to add it straight across. 7 plus 5 is 12, 12 plus 3 is 15, and that's fine. One of the things with Number Talks is you never, ever, ever tell a child they're doing it wrong. Can you ask the children if they agree with that answer? Yes, but there's no shaming involved, and if they make a mistake, mistakes are just learning opportunities. And then eventually, one child is going to say, well, I added 7 plus 3 first, and then the 5. And that's when you go, oh, you did? Why did you do that? And you're going to then learn about how, okay, we made a 10 first. Because we know our 10 facts. We know 8 plus 2 is 10, and 6 plus 4 is 10. Once we make that 10, adding the 5 is that much easier. And then we'd even do one more to seal it. This whole process should not take more than like 5 to 6 minutes. Now, the first couple of days of school, you're starting your routines. It'll take a little longer on the first couple days. But by the 4th or 5th day of doing this, it really should be 5 to 6 minutes. It's not overly complicated, but what you're doing is you're getting the children to talk mathematically about their thinking. And then it goes on and on and on. So the first ones are simple problems. Then, after doing a couple of these, you move on to 4 digits. And now, maybe you're not making a 10, maybe you're making a 20 and then adding up. And then once you do those, you can start to come over here where you actually have to start to decompose numbers. 9 plus 5. Well, if you take 1 from the 5 and make it 10, and this becomes a 4, it's 14. So you're trying to get them to do that problem solving in their head. You're trying to move away from fingers, away from counters. But this is very brief. So this is now my math message, or the opening of my math lesson. Some districts may call it a do now, or whatever it is. This is what we do first. Another book I am using, I've showed this one before, is my step-by-step drawing. Now this one's not getting used as much as Number Talks, because Number Talks is getting used almost every day. But I will show you at what point I'm using this one in the series. And this is the book I am pulling from heavily. Common Core Math in Action. And this book is truly a phenomenal book. The first lessons I'm doing in here, well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and... All right, here's the first one that I'm doing. 10 times the money. And look at right off the bat, I've got 4th graders using paper bills. I'll get back to this, but let me show you why that's the first lesson I'm doing. In my math book, my learning target for this day, this is lesson 1-1, would be students work with place value in whole numbers through hundred thousands. And one of the things I see here in the book is that they're really working on getting to realize that a 10 is 10 times 1. 100 is 10 times 10. 1,000 is 10 times 100. This is not an easy skill to see in your head. And if you look in this lesson, there's a lot of board work where I'm modeling something for the students, but nowhere in this lesson is there something that the children can touch and get going hands-on. So I'm replacing this with Math Talks. This part will be changed to do this lesson right here. All right? And what you're literally going to have to do is, you just follow. It's almost a script, but it's an easy script to follow. Begin by telling the students to place one bill in the ones place. How much money is that? How much money would it be if you did 10 times that $1? And then, then you're going to put down their first 10. You're still going to have like your stack of 10 ones though, and then your 110. And then you could say 10 times 1 made a 10. And it goes through here of what you might write on your butcher paper or your whiteboard. And then you're going to repeat it. Now put a $10 bill in the tens place. How many $10 bills do you need to make 100? All right. And then, so they keep building. They build a pile of 10 ones, right, times 10 over here, and then you have a 10. Now build a pile of 10 tens, and then you can say that 10 times 10 is 100, and you put your $100 bill here. And then I'm going to make a fake $1,000 bill, and they're going to put down 10 $100 bills, and I'll say 10 times 100 is 1,000. So we're going to literally build this chart that they want me to project on a board or draw on a board. Instead of doing it that way, the children are going to make it with actual money, with ones, tens, hundreds, and then my fake thousands. And it even introduces the fractions in here a little bit, that $1 is 1/10 of a $10 bill, and a $10 bill is 1/10 of a $100 bill. All right, and then if you turn the page, this takes it all the way up to the thousands. And then once I get to the thousands with the concrete paper money, at that point we could just talk about, well, what would happen if you had 10 $1,000 bills. And that part now you can start drawing it on the board. And then there's even variations, all right? And then an activity that the kids can do in their math journals. Now, so getting back to the everyday math lesson. Have I taught my mental math and fluency? Yes. Have I explored place value and built the 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 chart? Yes. What I haven't done necessarily is this here, but that is okay because honestly I don't really find that to be that useful anyway. Now in the book series, and I wish I had a kids practice book with me, but I don't. here is actually the math journal in their book. This is the student book. And this we will actually do in class. All right, finding the value of these digits. Because now once we've done the activities with the money and the whiteboard work, they're ready for this. It makes sense in a way that this never did to them. All right, and then moving on here, these are the math boxes. They can do these too. So, and then the homework for that night is basically the exact same thing that we learned in class. I love that. I'm true to the lesson. I'm true to the very expensive math series that my district purchased, but I am trying my best to differentiate and scaffold the learning so that every child's needs is being met. And then so here in my 1-1 box, I literally wrote the learning target, generalized place value for multi-digit whole numbers. And then I put here, I should have put NT first. NT means number talks, page 186. That's where I'm going to pull one of the problems from. CC is the Common Core book, page 55 through 56. This is where I'm going to get my hands-on lesson. And then EDM is Everyday Math, read and write big numbers. And then we will do journal pages 2 through 3. All right. The next day, lesson 1-2. All right. Once again, my learning target is record numbers in expanded form, compare numbers through 100,000s. My number talks page 186. It's the same page because, there's like 9 problems on one page. So 186, making tens. My Common Core, this time for the Common Core book, the only thing in here that I really want is this illustration. I'm not actually teaching the Common Core lesson the way they're presenting it, but I love the idea of having big butcher paper and having these charts made in advance. And so since I'm going to have tables next year, my plan is to put one of these big butcher papers on every table. And so a group of 4 is getting one of these together, and together we will fill it in. So, and then I love here in the chart how the chart not only writes it, but then writes the wording as well. I love this chart. So this is going to be presented right after my number talks. And then after I do that illustration, most of lesson 1-2 from the Everyday Math book. So here we're going to just continue working with the comparing numbers and then we'll do the journal pages 4 and 5. Okay. Lesson 1-3. Students will learn procedures for rounding numbers through 100,000s. All right. And again, I'm starting my lesson off with my number talks on page 186. And then this one, I did this lesson last year. This lesson was hard. The fact is, what seems so easy to us, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, round it down. If it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, round it up. The children don't really have that really good number sense yet. And until you build that number sense, charts like this is not really helpful for me. So, in this book, Common, page 59 and 60, place value rounding, I have a set of these strips in my classroom. These are amazing because what you do is you stack them. So this makes the number 2,478. And then I can pick up the 8 and say, see, this 8 is just 8 ones. I can pick up the 7 and the 0 is already attached to the 7. So the children can actually see that the 7 is not ones, but actually a 7D. The 4 is a 400. The 2 is a 2,000. All right. And then you can use the sticky note to move it to what place value you want to round to. Do you want to round to the thousands? Do you want to round to the hundreds? Do you want to round to the tens or the ones? So if I wanted to round this to the hundreds, I'd put that sticky note right here under the 7. And then using a hundreds chart, we could actually say, is this 70 closer to 0 or a new 100? If it's closer to 0, that 4 is going to stay a 4. If that 70 is closer to 100, then we're going to round this up to the next 100 because we're going to add that 100 to the 400. So this was a really great lesson. And again, it's all presented right here in very simple ways to share it with the kids. I feel like a lot of this is almost written in like kid talk, if that makes sense. So you get your mathematical content in there, you are using mathematical language, but you're using it in a kid-friendly way. So that's pretty much what I just kept doing through all of these was, number talks, Common Core, everyday math. Number talks, Common Core, everyday math. All right. If we go, I'm going to go ahead and skip a little bit to 1-6 because that is where I finally use model drawing. All right. 1-6 was solving number stories. All right. And in the book, it just jumps right in right away to column addition. And there are the number stories and they just want the answers. And it really did just jump right in. Well, children need to know how to decompose a number story. They need to be able to find the pertinent information. And most importantly, they need to know what is the operation for that. So for this day, I am doing I'm calling this MD, model drawing, and I'm going to show them page 3. I'm actually going to turn page 3 into a poster for the classroom, and we're going to do problems 1 and 2. So page 3 is going to become an anchor chart in the classroom and a step-by-step model drawing. Read the entire problem. Write the question in a sentence form, leaving space for the answer. Determine who and or what is involved in the problem. Draw the unit bars. Chunk the problem. Adjust the unit bars. Put in a question mark. Correctly compute and solve the problem. And then write your answer and make sure your answer makes sense. All right. Now, again, are they going to know all this by the 6th lesson? No. This is going to be something that gets referred to back again and again for the whole year. That's why it's an anchor chart. And then if I move on to problems 1 and 2. Okay, and now you might say, well, why are you doing problem number 1? Janet picked 3 daisies and 2 sunflowers from her garden. How many total flowers did Janet pick from her garden? Yes, this is a ridiculously easy problem, but I'm going to use this problem to show the children how usually they would draw sticks. Oh, she got 3 of these and 2 of these, so 3 plus 2 equals 5, all right? Children love, at least in my school district, children love tally marks. Well, the problem is my students want to do tally marks even when it's 32 plus 57. All of a sudden, tally marks don't work anymore. Tally marks are becoming a problem. So this one shows them how to draw a unit bar using 1 square per flower. And we'll go through it. But also, they label it. You have to always label. So she picked 3 daisies. Daisy 1, Daisy 2, Daisy 3. Then we're going to add to our value bar. She picked 2 sunflowers. Sunflower 1, sunflower 2. How many flowers did she pick in all? We put a question mark at the end. And then we can count the boxes and say 5. She picked 5 flowers. And here is our equation. And then we can ask, one bag of lettuce weighed 14 ounces. Another bag weighed 12 ounces. What was the total weight of the 2 bags of lettuce? And now we're going to start drawing value bars, but I'm going to tell the kids, all right, do we really have to draw 14 little boxes and 12 little boxes? Or can I just draw 1 bar and write 14 in it? And then can I say, now can I add to my value bar by adding my 12 more? Now we work out the problem. It's a very simple model drawing still, but again, my children are coming to me with gaps in their education. Starting simple and working our way up, we'll get there, but yet they're still persevering in their work. They're still thinking out the problem. They're still talking mathematically. And, you know, if need be, if I think they need tools, they will have counters to do this so that they can choose the appropriate tools, and we will work through it. So, yes. Again, now this should only take maybe 15 minutes. So 5 to 6 minutes for the math talks, 15 minutes for this, which then gives us still plenty of time to then take what we just learned and use it to solve the book problems. Okay, so if I look at this page, this math book, the student journal has 3 number stories, and they will have scratch paper. And then I would, because this is something new, I would probably let them work with partners or in groups of 4 to solve these problems. And then once they're done, I would call groups up to show their scratch paper on the overhead projector. And then as a class, we could discuss how each table solved the problem. What did their value bars look like? Do we agree with their answers? And so, yes, I like that much better than just jumping straight into it, or me telling them that, well, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. So that's where I'm using number talks. So I didn't use number talks until literally lesson number 6. But then when I go to lesson number 7, it's traditional U.S. addition, and I did some altering on lesson 7 because with this lesson, it's just adding, straightforward adding, but it's also rounding. They want the students to make their, what they call ballpark estimates. Ugh. All right, I'm getting frustrated with pages here. There's got to be an easier way to do this. I find the adding part, for the most part, my kids are fine. They are. These ballpark estimates is the part that my students hate. They hate doing these. So I'm going to literally refer back to this lesson from the other day, place value rounding in the Common Core book, and I'm going to pull out these strips again. And before I even start asking them to make those ballpark estimates, we're going to go through this, and we will manipulate these and create a bunch of numbers, and then just to remind them of how to estimate. Now, I will say this lesson did present one thing that I will need to cover in here when it comes to estimating. And actually, it wasn't in this lesson. Nope, not yet. I jumped ahead. So I'm going to refer back to this book before continuing on with the everyday math lesson. And of course, the mental math and math message will be replaced with the number talks, because I may not do a number talks every day of the week, but I want to do them at least 4 days a week. I want to get a number talk in because I just find this to be so valuable, just that to access that brain thinking. All right. The next thing in the everyday math book, every unit has a project, and this one was called Cracking the Muffin Code. And while this part of it I liked, fitting bagels into boxes, I like this in that, you know, if you have 27 bagels, you will use one box that holds 25, and you'll use 2 boxes that just hold 1. I am totally fine with this. But then over here, it gets really weird with this whole muffin code that makes no sense at all. I mean, I had to reread it myself several times to figure it out before I could even try to present it to the kids. And I presented it to the kids like 4 times, and all 4 times I had nothing but deer in headlights. So it's out. I'm not even wasting class time on this, and to waste 2 whole days on, if it was just teaching the manipulating and moving things around and using tile squares, that would have been great. But this whole code thing is just nuts. So the way I see it, I have 2 days to teach something I really, really need to teach. So I'm getting rid of that. And instead of the muffin code, whatever, I'm going to be teaching the compensation strategy because this is one that my students cannot do. And so it's on page 52 in this book. And of course, we will start the day with a number talk. And this time, the number talk will be a different page because I'm going to jump to subtraction number talks because the compensation strategy is used mostly for subtraction. And so I've actually tried teaching this in my classroom. I pulled them to the carpet, I wrote a problem like this on the board, and I said, wow, that is really, really hard. Can we change this number? How? Can I take 1 away from 900 and make it 899 and take 1 away from here and make it 467 and then subtract without any borrowing? Kids have no clue what the heck I'm talking about. I mean, they don't get it. So what is the lesson there here? You make a number line on the floor out of butcher paper, and you actually, you're going to make like a number line that goes from like 1 to 30, but leave enough space for children to stand on it. And then you're going to start doing problems, all right? So, the first problem they have the kids doing here is 8 minus 5. So one child stands on 8, one stands on 5. You count the bunny hops between the number, and you find out that the distance between 8 and 5 is 3. And you then do another problem. And once again, you keep looking for the distance, and you then point out the pattern that if he takes 2 steps to the left and she takes 2 steps to the left, the distance is the same. As long as you do the same thing to both numbers, the distance is the same. And then you start applying that to moving on from here and showing them how you can turn 900 into, 899 and 468 into 467 and take away all borrowing. I love this strategy, but it is a really, really complicated one. And since the muffin code was supposed to be 2 days, I'm going to spend 2 days on the compensation strategy because I'm going to present it in here. We'll use the butcher paper, the number line to do the walking back and forth. And then when we come back the next day, we'll do a new number talks subtraction again. And if you don't understand my shorthand, this says add up to subtract. That's the number talks we're working on. And then again, Common Core, repeat the process, and then I will give them several problems on paper, and we will go through paper and pencil versions of how to solve this. The first day we'll be working on their individual whiteboards and a lot of, movement. This day we'll pull out pencils and papers, and in the end I will actually collect maybe 5 problems, and I'm going to say, I want to see the work. I want to see your compensations. So that's what I'm doing in place of the muffin code. Because like I said, I've taught this and it was awful. And then, so I'm going to stop right there because I could keep going, and make this video an hour long if I wanted to. But so you can see that this is my rough draft math. This is how I'm pulling from 3 different math books, and how I'm pulling, paper money and number strips and, walking on a number line back into 4th grade while still then doing the journal pages in the math series and making sure that I get to the skills in the math series too. So whereas this is light on the foundation, this is heavy on foundation, and together it's that perfect scaffolding. I really hoped breaking my lessons down this way helps you to understand where I'm coming from and my thinking and how I'm presenting the lessons. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I'd love to hear your feedback. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more from me in the future, click the subscribe button, and I'll talk to you later.